What's up, you guys? Welcome to today's video. So I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about the temptation to go back to prison. I know that sounds weird, sounds really strange, or the temptation to go back to my old lifestyle. There we go. I don't know exactly what I'm gonna title this video, but Reese and I were talking about this last night, and there were so many times in my first year out of prison, and even into my second year, that temptation almost pulled me back to my old lifestyle. And I think it's important that we talk about these things because you might see me now and you might think that I have it all together and my life is perfect and everything is great and I'm sober. And while that is true, I have very little to complain about. I'm still an addict and I still had to overcome so many things to get to where I am today. I think people so often just see the success. They don't see how long it took you to get there. They don't see the struggle. They don't see the trials, the tribulations, the obstacles, the nights spent crying, the turning off your phone and going to bed so that you don't party with people that are begging you to party. So I want to talk to you guys a little bit about that and the things that I personally encountered and maybe how to avoid falling victim to our own triggers. So without further ado, let's get into today's video. So my first year out of prison was very stressful. I actually have a video called that on my channel, my first year out of prison. It was like the fourth video I ever did and it's atrocious. But I think everyone's YouTube videos when they first start out are awful. So, you know, if you're thinking about starting YouTube, just know that your first video is gonna be garbage. So we're all there with you. But anyway, my first year out of prison was really hard and I had this temptation to go back to selling drugs so many times. And it actually would have been so much easier for me to return to that old lifestyle because I had connections to do so. Now, I always thought if I just run away and I leave New York, that's where I'm from, if I just leave New York, I'm not gonna do drugs. I don't know anyone in all these different places. I'm not gonna find drugs, I'm not gonna do drugs, it's gonna be fine. As it turns out, you take you everywhere you go. I was able to find what I wanted in every city I've ever been to, including Fort Smith, Arkansas, which is where I got locked up the last time. And that was so easy for me. A fisherman can always spot another fisherman, so I could always tell if someone was using. I was always around those people. That was just my inner circle. So let's fast forward to me getting out of prison. I was like 95 pounds. I was skinny. I weigh 120 now. That's like me at my heaviest is 120, but I was really skinny. I was dirt poor. I had nothing. I was so scared to get out of prison that I remember being in Sallyport waiting for them to open the gate, shaking. I was literally shaking. Oh, for those of you that don't know, Sallyport is where inmates come in and out from. It's like the back of the prison. Visitors going through the front door. Your girl has never seen the front door of a prison. Anyway, so I was in Sallyport pacing and I was really scared. I was actually released in prison shower shoes, so janky ass flip-flops, and my prison sweatpants and like a little vest over my prison shirt because you can't just walk out in all white, which is the color that you wore in Arkansas prison, because the guard tower will like shoot you or something. So, you know, don't break the law. Anyway, I remember walking to my friend's car and they tell you that you can't run because inmates that escaped ran. So there's a whole protocol of being released from prison. I remember walking to my friend just so scared and I had nowhere to go. So I eventually ended up at a halfway house in Springdale, Arkansas. This halfway house charged me $100 a week to live there and they started rent the day I showed up. But it took me a week to find a job and then it took me 2 weeks to get a paycheck, but my paycheck was only $60 because it was one day. So the day I got hired was like a Sunday and that was the last day in the pay period. I worked 12 hours, I got $60. So I actually had to wait another 2 weeks to get a full paycheck. So I was a solid month behind and I was always behind the whole time that I lived there. So I was desperately trying to catch up because I didn't want to owe rent. But I was trying to catch up on rent at the halfway house, get clothes because I couldn't go to work dressed in other people's clothes. I had to borrow girls' clothes from the halfway house. I was also trying to save to get a car. I was also trying to buy food and groceries and things that I needed like sneakers. I had to borrow sneakers to get to my job that paid minimum wage. I eventually was fortunate enough to get another job that also paid minimum wage. So I had 2 jobs and I worked myself to death When I say that, I mean like literally. So I would go to one of my jobs from 8 a.m. to about 4 p.m. and then I would go to my second job, which I could work as many hours as I want and come and go as I want. It was a telemarketing job. So I would go there to the telemarketing job from 4 p.m. to 10 or 11 p.m. I worked all day, every day. And the days that I had to go visit my daughter, instead of working at the first job, I would drive all the way to Searcy, Arkansas. So that's like 3.5, 4 hours away from Springdale, Arkansas. And I would be in the car all day, visit my daughter for 2 hours, drive home the 4 hours, and then I would usually get home around 6 or 7 p.m. I would then go into the telemarketing job and work until 10:30. So I was working really, really hard. One day I got a call from someone in prison, a friend of mine, and I was so frustrated and I was venting and I was just like, I can't live like this. I can't make it like this. I don't even have money for food. I'm behind on rent. There's no way I'm gonna get my daughter. I was being very negative, very woe is me, because I didn't have really anyone to talk to at this point in my life. So the fact that someone called me from prison, I was like, oh my God, it's so hard out here, because I felt like that person could relate to my struggle. So midway through this conversation, my friend goes, Jess, you know I can set a re-up up for you, right? A re-up, for those of you that don't know, means he could have set up a deal to get me drugs so that I could sell drugs. He said, I could set that up for you. Do you want me to do that? I froze. I remember standing in the kitchen of this halfway house and I thought, I know what this means. I know that in a few days I can get the money I need for a car, for an apartment. I could do it all for my daughter. I could get all this money really quickly and have my daughter back. I could do everything the court is saying in a week. You guys, I can't even express to you how badly I wanted to tell him yes. Please set up that call for me. So I said, let me think about it. And I am pacing. He called me back the next day and I didn't answer. Just on my connections alone, I could have very easily gone right back into the drug world on just using my name, using my reputation, and many people in that inner circle from Arkansas knew that I didn't snitch, knew that I could be trusted, and you guys, I would have been given a lot of free stuff because of that, because of the people that I know and my inner circle and my friends' inner circle. It would have been very, very easy for me. But what comes easy never lasts. And I knew that I had to stick it out. So that was the first temptation of mine that just was really hard for me. I remember pacing and just wanting to say yes so bad. I remember wanting to be that person so bad because I was also going through a huge transitional phase in my life where I'm not using drugs, I'm not selling drugs, I'm working this crap job. I don't have my shit together, and I was very like negative with myself, and I told myself a lot of damaging things. I told myself I wasn't doing shit, or I wasn't gonna get my kid, and the way I was doing it was wrong. It was very hard for me to be positive. It was very hard for me to remain, I guess that's the only word I can use. It was really hard for me to remain positive in those moments of being freaking broke. I was starving. I had no clothes. I had no sneakers. I had to very slowly build a wardrobe from Plato's Closet. And now you have to keep in mind that was not the lifestyle I was living before. I was used to making a lot of money, and if I needed something, I would just go buy it. It wasn't that hard. But this is very different. So it was a transitional phase of me not being on drugs, not selling drugs, doing everything the right way. And I also had to figure out who I was. I still didn't even feel comfortable in my own skin. That was a process that took years. Now at 30 years old, I am finally so much more confident than I ever was at 20. So I'm finally now comfortable in my own skin, and I'm so grateful for that. So I want to go back a little bit to the halfway house and another situation that arose, because I think it's important to highlight these. I didn't make one good decision to just not do drugs, not sell drugs, and work a regular job. I had to make several good decisions over the course of years to get to where I am today. So a girl that I was in prison with had recently gotten released, and she was living across the street from a halfway house. And she called me and said, "Hey, yo, New York, you wanna go over here with me and sell some dope with me? I could really use your help, da 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 da." And she is like, obviously high, and she's like, "I'll give you a few $100 just for riding with me." guys, again, I had to tell her no. I had to say, no, thank you, I don't wanna go. And I remember going to a meeting, and I wasn't the kind of person that's like, let's go to a meeting. That really wasn't a big part of my sobriety. It just wasn't my journey. I know it helps so many people, but it just wasn't for me. But in that moment, I knew that I could find a safe space in a meeting. And I just knew that was a better place for me than going and selling dope with her. And I knew that if I stayed home, I would have called her back and went with her. I had to get out of the house. I had to get away from any negativity or any further temptation to go sell drugs. So after I left the halfway house, I actually moved in with some people in the hopes of saving up money. They weren't gonna charge me rent, which I was so grateful for. So this meant that I could save up money and I could get my first apartment and I could have my daughter. So I had to move very quickly. And in this decision to move out of the halfway house and into these people's house, they were good people, very good people, but they drink socially. And I knew that, but I didn't really think anything of it at the time. I just thought, it's a nice home, they're nice people, I can move in here and save money. So I did that. And because they drink and party a little bit, they're normal people, I can't do that. But because they do, I had to constantly retreat to my own room to not drink with them. They would stay up late and they would drink and sing drunk karaoke, which is so awesome. They would make pho, which is like noodles, it's like the soup, or they'd make all these really great Asian foods, and they were just really, really cool people. However, they didn't fundamentally understand addiction or understand what I had just gone through. So a lot of times they were like, oh, white girl can't hang, eek out can't hang. Eek out is a white girl in Laos. And they were just kind of picking on me and teasing me a little bit so that I would drink with them, loosen up and have some fun. And I had to constantly retreat back to my own space so that I didn't do that. And that was so difficult for me because of course I want to take a shot. I want to take all the shots. I want to. I can outdrink you. I will drink you under the table. I will have everyone begging me to stop partying once I flip that switch, and I know that. I know better. I know that there is no, let's take a bunch of shots and sing drunk karaoke for Jessica, because Jessica is gonna end up back in jail. So I knew that I couldn't do that, but that was so hard when they're always like, oh, take a shot, come on, party with us. So this didn't happen all the time, but it did happen occasionally, and I finally had to put my foot down and just say, you cannot do this around me. I'm sorry, I know this sucks, I know I live here. Because eventually I got a duplex and this woman was my roommate. And her family members would come over and there would just be beer bottles all over the place because I would go to sleep and they would stay up making Korean grill or making all these really awesome dishes and partying and having a good time like normal people. And I had to be the recluse and just retreat back to my room and not hang out with them. And they thought that I was being disrespectful because of their culture, but I wasn't trying to be disrespectful. I was trying to be sober. And I don't really think they understood that at first. They might understand that now, but I didn't feel understood in that moment. I felt so alone and so isolated and so misunderstood, and it was very difficult for me. So when it was my place too, when it was my duplex, I had to say, you can't do this here. We can't have drunk karaoke here because I have to get my daughter back and DHS is gonna come over here. So once I did let that be known, they did respect that and they did respect the space because we're trying to get Micah out of DHS custody. So that was just another obstacle in my way. Financially, I couldn't afford that duplex by myself at that time. So I had to have a roommate. The roommate just happened to be Micah's family member. So it was okay. And a lot of times when you move in with someone and you have a roommate, you have to understand each other and respect each other's space, personal wishes. So that was just the journey with that. I could have very easily said, yeah, I want to drink, because I did want to drink. I was stressed the fuck out, but I had to keep saying no. I had to keep fighting. So I had a lot of temptations in my first year out of prison. It was very, very difficult for me. I wanted so bad to give up so many times where a caseworker even told me, Jessica, you're not making enough progress. I think the judge is gonna petition to terminate your rights. A caseworker said that to me. So if you're going through a DHS case, just know that caseworker has no idea what the judge is gonna say. They can speculate all they want, but the judge has the final say. So don't rely too heavily on what a caseworker says. Just wait it out, don't give up, and wait until you hear what that judge has to say, because that caseworker was wrong. My caseworker told me on 2 different occasions that I wasn't making enough progress and the judge was gonna petition to terminate my rights. Imagine telling an addict that has been fighting for the past year to be a mother. Imagine telling her that and having her give up or relapse. That could have very easily caused a relapse for me. So I just want you guys to understand that my first year was like this. It was a constant struggle. I was starving. I had no clothes. I was dead broke, but I was very slowly starting to chip away all of the things that I had to accomplish. So if you are struggling, please know that I was with you too. You are not alone, and you can absolutely accomplish every single thing I have and so much more. If you're fighting a DHS case, do not give up. Never give up. Even if the judge does terminate your rights, file an appeal and fight. I'm gonna end today's video here. I love you guys. Stay safe, stay sober. Do not be tempted to get pulled back into that old life, because there's only 2 things that selling drugs leads to: prison and the ground. Bye, you guys.